Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the Tech Trailblazers Judges on Fire podcast. And my name is Rose Ross. I'm a Chief Trailblazer and founder of the Tech Trailblazers, and I'm delighted to be joined today by Brian Honan, who is one of our star judges, has been with us from the beginning, and also a leading light in the cybersecurity space and runs BH Consulting. Hello, Brian. How are you?
I'm great, Rose. Thank you for having me on the podcast.
Well, that's a pleasure. Well, we've known each other for a long time, but we haven't seen each other for a little while due to COVID. Because info security has been all virtual, which just isn't the same, is it?
No. Virtual events are great because you can attend them from wherever, whenever, but you do lose that personal touch. You do lose that opportunity. I think it's not the same dynamics, same energy as when you're bumping into somebody in the corridors or between talks and stuff. So yeah, hopefully next year.
Well, fingers firmly crossed, firmly crossed on that. So obviously you've been with us for a long time, right from the beginning, which has been absolutely a pleasure. And you've spent quite a lot of time, obviously, looking at the amazing startups who I'm sure you've come across in the past, but I know a lot of them are new to you when you do come across them as entrants. So, but what would be great is anybody who doesn't know you, just to get a bit of a, who is Brian? What do you do? That would be wonderful.
Okay, well, obviously, name's Brian Honan. I'm CEO of BH Consulting. We're an independent consulting firm specializing in cybersecurity and data protection based in Dublin. So we're 30 people. We have clients all over the world in many different industries. So it's an interesting aspect that we have because we don't sell software, we don't sell hardware, but we're often asked by our clients to help them to select solutions for their cybersecurity or data protection challenges. So we get to see a lot of what's good and what's bad and what's out there in the industry, and which is, as you said, Rose, I've been on the judging panel for quite a while, so it's great to bring that experience from working with our customers and our clients as to their challenges they have, to see what exciting things are coming through by new companies and startups. So so that's who I am. If anybody wants to find out who I am, just Google me, because there's not many Brian Honans in the world.
Especially in cybersecurity as well, and Dublin. We'll get you tracked down. No worries. So you've obviously talked about cybersecurity, and it's been a very interesting year, hasn't it, from a cybersecurity perspective? A lot of people have faced a lot of challenges, a lot of businesses have faced a lot of challenges, but cybersecurity startups and cybersecurity technology in certain areas has had a bit of a boom because of the fact that people are working remotely. There are different challenges for cybersecurity professionals, for businesses. We've seen the rise of ransomware and lots of other issues that people have to deal with. The threat landscape has changed, not for the best. Certainly different challenges. So from a startup perspective, what kind of challenges do you see as being important for them to address, and what are you seeing that's hot out there at the moment?
Yeah, well, I think you put your finger on the key issue there, Rose, is that the pandemic has brought many challenges to businesses. Now, I'd argue, ransomware has been a problem that's been around a long time. What ransomware has done is that it's really highlighted how poor organizations have been in securing their environments. If ransomware can get into your systems and lock up your business, well, then so can any other malicious piece of software and everything else. Except previous to this onslaught of ransomware, any other malware that we've tried to deal with previously has been quite silent, quite hidden. It's been stealing information, it's been stealing credit card data. So it hasn't had the same business impact. So therefore, ransomware in a way has been if I can say it's a cloud with a silver lining, is that it has brought cybersecurity right up to the board attention and to even government and policymakers' attention in ways that previous cyber attacks hasn't happened in the past. But saying that, I think the pandemic has brought many challenges to businesses. So, you and I are now doing this interview and recording this on Zoom. 2 years ago, nobody knew who Zoom were, but the pandemic gave Zoom the opportunity. They saw the opportunity of remote working, collaboration, etc. That's where the gap was, and that's where Zoom just, to pardon the pun, they zoomed up the stock market and in size. And we've seen other, in the cybersecurity space, we saw companies like Cloudflare offer free remote working collaboration tools. So I think if you're a cybersecurity startup, have a look now and think, okay, what is the business landscape going to be like in the next 6, 12, 18 months? What are the challenges from a cybersecurity point of view that those businesses are going to face? And I think a lot of that is going to be, we're not going to go back to full-time office working again. We're going to have this hybrid mix. So how do businesses secure their data and their systems in a hybrid environment? And that's going to be a big challenge, I think, that many businesses are going to face over the coming years.
Absolutely. And from that perspective, obviously digital transformation has been another thing, apart from video conferencing. And it was, as you say, it was very not like Zoom, but it was Zoom who? What?
Yeah.
What is that? You want to meet me on Zoom?
Yeah.
And now everybody's like Zooming everybody. We don't, it doesn't.
It's become a verb now.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to Zoom. So, but digital transformation, and I know we've talked in the past about cloud and security, because cloud gives you access to things.
Yeah.
But it needs to be easy for people to be able to use it in their day-to-day lives. But it also needs to be secure. And we all know that security often creates a layer of, two-factor authentication. And I mean, I'm the worst for getting annoyed with things. I just want to get in and use it. What's this password again? And validating and everything. So, users are the worst nightmare when it comes to security, because they're the ones who are almost like hacking their own system to try and get around everything, right?
Because they want to get the job done.
Yeah, and it's frustrating, isn't it? It's like, oh, just want to get on and do this because you're okay, but the system doesn't know you're okay. So, I mean, do you still see that that's going to be an important part of it? Because nobody can really look at enterprise security for your systems without considering that element.
Yeah, look, again, the pandemic brought to the fore cloud computing and remote working. So companies had the choice of either increasing their remote working platforms, be they VPNs, remote gateways, etc., or migrating to the cloud. And for many businesses, the rush to survive and keep the business going, they most likely got systems working. They may not have got them working securely, though. That is the sting in the tail, because they may have just, let's get to the cloud, get it working, make sure it's working. Now, retrospectively, people are going to have to go back and make sure those platforms are secure, or maybe the remote working environments are secure. And that's going to bring a lot of challenges, because I hear what you're saying about security being a pain in the proverbials and having to, why do I have to remember this password? And this is where we fail as an industry. And this is where I believe Tech Trailblazers and those startups can help us here. We need to be designing technology around the user, not the user around the technology. We need to make sure our security systems keep people secure. Like if I've often compared cybersecurity as it is today to how car safety was in 1910s, 1920s. Back then, you'd know seatbelts, no crumple sounds. If you had a car crash, we
unfortunately learned to fly through the windscreen. So from that perspective, I mean, what you were saying was that we need to have innovative approaches to basically wrapping users,
Yeah,
the security around them, rather than giving it as a hurdle for them to keep jumping over during the
exactly.
day.
Yeah, yeah. As a user, I just want to do my job. I just want to get work done. I don't want to have to learn about cybersecurity. That's not my job. My job is to run payroll. My job is to process sales orders. My job is to do reports.
Mm.
It's not to figure out how to keep the system secure. That's somebody else's job, and it should be that way. Coming back to my car analogy, when I leave the office, I'm going to jump in my car. I don't need to understand how the engine works. I don't need to understand how the seatbelt works or the airbags work. I just know they're there and they would be there to protect me if I make a mistake.
Mm.
And same with our IT environments and the cybersecurity solutions. They need to be more user centric, and the user interface and how we use them need to be more easy to understand as well. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for the right solution out there to really make a lot of money if they get it right.
Yeah, definitely. So we need sort of some kind of invisible shield
Mhm.
effectively around the users, that you don't see it, it's just there to protect you
Correct.
and stop you doing things but not stop you working,
Yeah,
and being productive, and not getting frustrated with systems and then trying to work out how you can get around the security elements of it.
absolutely.
Not that I've ever done that, of course.
No, like again, and I'm beating this analogy to death here now, Rose. But if when I say to you, I'm going to ask you a question now, okay? My turn to ask a question.
No, I'm sorry.
Well,
When did this become you asking me questions?
I'm
Oh, can
Irish.
I speak to my agent, please? This is not
I'm
how this
Irish. We
works.
don't follow the rules.
Oh, right. Well, I will take the amendments if required. But anyway, go for it. I'm
What
not
do
going to
break?
answer you truthfully, just
What
telling you
what
that
what do the brakes on your car do?
they stop the car.
No, they don't. They make your car go faster.
Oh, I see.
If you'd no brakes on your car, how fast could you drive your car?
Well, I wouldn't get in it.
Absolutely. And that's the way that's the way security needs to be viewed upon. If I said to, earlier on, you're going about security getting in the way and stopping us doing work, but security done right and done properly allows us to do things in a safe, secure way and get from our business to our business destinations in a safe manner.
Mm. Okay. So I interviewed Logan Andrew Green from Gigaome for the Tech on Fire stuff that we're doing with those guys, which is kind of looking into the future. And he specializes really in the IoT space. And obviously that's been a big security concern for a lot of people. Do you see that as being something that you'll be interested in seeing, whether there's any innovation in that space that will be useful for clients and useful for the world?
No, absolutely. Like, I think when we think about IoT, people immediately think about, oh, that's my smart home, that's my light bulb or whatever. But IoT is getting everywhere. It's going to be smart meters. It's going to be your car. It's going to be every device we use. From a business point of view, it's going to be, if you're a manufacturer, you're going to be companies are going to be changing or are changing their manufacturing lines from being maybe manual type process or old-fashioned conveyor belt systems, maybe, to high-tech computerized IoT stuff that can do just-in-time assembly, tie back into your warehouse to do supply chain management, to order the parts you need based on availability. And all these are going to be integrated. And that means that the attack surface for many organizations is going to increase. And there's a lot more risk going to be introduced because the traditional environment is, you keep your IoT or your industrial systems separate from your business network, but that in reality doesn't happen. And in the future, they're going to have to talk to each other, because if you do want your production line to be able to automatically order the parts you need for that big order you just got in from sales, well, you're going to have to integrate those systems together to do all that. But obviously what we need to do is keep those secure and keep them working.
So, I mean, we're talking about an awful lot of aspects and about automation. I mean, that's another element of cybersecurity and lots of parts of the, the tech landscape.
Yeah.
You've talked about, the attack surface, but clearly these things all hang together. I mean, are you seeing that as being an important thing for people to consider, or an important part of what we're going to see in the startup space over the next few years?
Oh, absolutely. Like the problem we're having now is that we're getting so many devices and so many things connected together that we're going to have to monitor and react to issues
Mhm.
with them. But we don't have enough humans to do that. If you look at any of the reports coming out about the cybersecurity field, the one of the big issues is the skills gap. Now that's a different debate for a different podcast, I'm sure, Rose, because I have some, surprise, surprise, I have some contrarian views on that topic
Brian
as
has
well.
some views on that as well. Well, go figure.
But,
When do you ever sleep? That's what I want to know. But
but yeah,
yeah,
we need to automate
yeah,
these, because if we're getting thousands of alerts per minute, or events happening per minute, or things going on, we won't be able to react in time to stop them. If you take a ransomware attack, you need to be able to detect and respond within milliseconds. You don't have that from a human point of view. So you do need good automation in your security tools and your security platforms so they work. And the big challenge with a lot of that as well is of course, we've got so many different solutions and platforms that, some of them don't even talk to each other. So there's lots of challenges to be met there.
yeah. So we're getting smarter, but we're also potentially getting dumber. That's the problem, isn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of to take kind of a line from a U2 song. We're running to a standstill.
Well, yeah, I mean, the information overload, and I think we've all suffered that with our personal lives. I mean, you've got social media, you've got everything like that. But obviously, for an enterprise, it's exactly the same, and even worse, depending on what your business is, what you're dealing with. You've talked about, manufacturing. We're talking about all sorts of, some people's business is their information. You've got ticketing systems, you've got all sorts of various things, which have all the way that they rely now on internet access, the way they now rely on the tech systems behind them. And from a competitive advantage perspective, you want them all to work together seamlessly, frictionless
Yeah.
integration. Everything's like, boom, boom, boom. There we go. Special effects as well. But of course, to get that kind of speed, you need to be able to then deal with any issues from a security perspective. That's all got to be, you can't have that speed of interaction, speed of interaction, the speed and the seamlessness without it being done almost like in a trusted environment.
Correct. Yeah. It's
so that's exciting. So obviously, let's talk about the awards a little bit more in depth. You've probably looked at hundreds of entries. There we go. I don't think we were started wearing glasses at the beginning of 10 years ago, were we?
no, it's
It's all new. It's all that pouring over the entries. What makes them stand out to you? Because obviously you take the time to look into it, but how can people make it a bit easier for themselves to kind of stand out? Now we've got him going on something.
The easiest thing I can say to somebody is plain and simple language. Please don't have your marketing person or your PR person write your entry.
Goodness me, what a thing to say.
But also don't have your technical person write your entry either. Have a balance between both. That if it's been read by a human, as somebody who doesn't understand your business, that you get across what it is you do quite quickly and simply. If I have to try and decipher your, the phrases you're using, the language you're using, and there's a lot of superfluous stuff on top of what you're actually doing, leading edge technology, like, so what does that mean? Tell me what your product does.
Yeah.
Tell me not just what your product does, but what is the problem you're going to solve for me? You know, that's the simple thing I want. I've read quite a few, you know, and they've been, we are the, innovative leading market leader in such a field in cybersecurity, and we're going to use gigaflops of data to re-engineer the environment. I'm going, okay, but what does that really mean for my business? What problem are you solving for me? And my rule of thumb actually is, Rose, I've never said this to you before, but if I have to go to your website outside of your entry to try and figure out what exactly you do, you're not off to a good start in my book.
There we go. Nul point. No, not null point. But let's say that's not going to get you a lot of favors there.
No.
Well, I think it's an important thing, isn't it? And I do think that in the tech industry, we suffer from the same issue with language as you do in the medical profession, which obviously has got a lot better. Our bedside manner isn't great sometimes.
No.
Let's be fair.
Yeah.
We get tied up in buzzwords.
Correct.
We use technical terminology, which basically, to somebody who's just got the problem, and this system is sick, what can we do to, what is the problem? Can you diagnose it, and can you fix it? Can you help us fix it? A load of buzzwords isn't going to help. And I think because we all get so absorbed into our own organization, that's part of the issue. So those buzzwords they're not buzzwords anymore. No. They're just the words, right?
And as a judge, think about it, you have to sell your entry to a judge who, if I'm looking for a solution for a client for a specific problem, I can Google what the certain terms, and I may come across your website, and then I can read your website. But I know the context. I know the context of what your company does based on on my Google search or my Bing search or whatever. We have to be fair to all the technology providers. But if I'm reading your entry in Tech Trailblazers, I don't know anything about you. I don't, so as you said, don't hit me with buzzwords or technology speak or anything else. Make it plain and simple. So I know, this company does that. Perfect. And then I have the context, and then I can go through it. And I suppose, and maybe that's why I was a bit harsh on the marketing people. Like, you're not trying to market or sell to the judge. You're trying to communicate to the judge what the problem is you're solving.
So keep it simple.
Keep it simple.
So throughout your career, I mean, obviously you've been, I'm pretty sure you're in the Hall of Fame for info security. You've had numerous accolades. You're incredibly well respected. You do lots of speaking, and now obviously over Zoom primarily. So now you're an expert in that too, a Zoomer.
Yeah.
But in the early parts of your career, did you have people who were helping? Because I very much get the impression you were very helpful to people as they, go through their careers. You obviously have younger people working with you, people who've maybe changed careers, who are working at BH. But was there anybody who was important to you when you first started out in cybersecurity?
Yeah, there was two people very important to me. One was a gentleman called Eugene Schultz. Eugene, or Gene as he's better known, was a fellow editor on the SANS Newsbite. So I've been on the SANS Newsbite editor board for quite a number of years, and Gene was on it as well. And Gene often gave me some very good insights into cybersecurity industry in the world and how things are happening. And Gene was from the US, so it was good to get viewpoints from the other side of the Atlantic, because as Europeans and Irish, we approach cybersecurity different than the Americans do. So it's good to get that. And another gentleman from he was an advisor for me for a while in a previous role, and he gave me a great piece of advice I think would be very useful for all the potential trailblazers out there listening to this. Is that when you're starting a new business, make sure there's a niche in the market for your business, but more importantly, make sure there's a market in that niche.
A
So
lot of niching and a lot of marketing there.
there's a lot of marketing, but it was very good. I thought it was a very good thing, because when I set BH Consulting back up in 2004, I was saying it needs to be an independent consulting firm, because I felt back then that anytime anybody had a problem with cybersecurity or need help with cybersecurity, they were going to their IT reseller, who would say, "Oh yes, your problem is you need a firewall, and by the way, we have a firewall for sale." Whereas there wasn't that independent advisor, and I said that's where I was coming to, and he goes, "That sounds interesting, but would people pay for it?" So he says, he gave me that phrase: make sure there's a niche in the market for what you're selling, but also that there's a big enough market in that niche that you're going to make money out of it. So
yeah,
20 years later, we're nearly an overnight success.
There we go. Overnight sensation here, Brian.
20 years later.
From Tech Trailblazers Judges on Fire podcast. You heard it here first. You heard it here first. So, obviously those were important. And having been in the industry for a long time, there's an awful lot of important work. But you talk about the skills gap. And one of the ways that people are looking to address that is to ensure that people from all backgrounds, encouraging diversity in the sector. And certainly, we're seeing an awful lot of women involved in it, a lot of people from different ethnic backgrounds, less people who've had to have gone to university to move forward in this. Do you think we're making the right kind of level of progress? And what do you think is the solution for that problem, if that is still a problem? I have to be a bit controversial.
It is still a problem, because even now, if you go and look at any adverts for jobs in cybersecurity, particularly entry-level jobs, there is a lot of must have a computer degree. I don't have a computer degree. Rose, if BH Consulting was to fail tomorrow and I was to apply for a job in cybersecurity,
we wouldn't have a chance, mate.
I wouldn't have a chance. And I'll give you an interesting story. I helped a university here in Dublin develop a master's in cybersecurity course. I got the material for them. I went with them before the Irish education bodies that authorized degree courses, and defended their application. I was invited to be one of their lecturers, and I said, absolutely, would love to do that. They said, the only formality, you need to send your CV into the HR department. And I didn't even get a first interview, because I don't have they turn around and say, you don't have a computer degree, you can't teach this course that you've designed and you've developed and you've helped us put in place. So we still have that mentality.
Therein lies the rub.
Therein lies the rub. And I do think, even from a cybersecurity point of view, we still figure you have to be technical to get into this field. You don't have to be technical, you have to be passionate. You can teach somebody the technology. And we still have a lot of machismo or macho attitudes within the industry. We see that in a lot of the, you go to we can't at the moment, but you go to cybersecurity
when you were able to,
we're using words like war and test, there's a lot of very aggressive words being used, and a lot of vendors will set their stands up to be very militaristic like and aggressive like, and it's not a very inclusive environment when we do that. And it's still very male dominated, and we need to better educate the males out there to be more open and receptive to people, to be more, and to stand against prejudice in all shapes and forms, and to be there to stand against it. And we need to be more open to other viewpoints and other backgrounds. You don't have to be an elite hacker to be a cybersecurity professional. You can come from many different backgrounds. Cybersecurity is not just about computers, it's about people. And at the end of the day, what we're trying to do in cybersecurity industry is protect data and protect information, which ultimately if you want to take it to the extra level, is protecting people. So, you know, if people's information gets in the wrong hands, that could lead to bad consequences. So it's a people industry. It's not a tech industry, and we need to be more receptive, more open, and talk to our HR departments about what type of people we're looking for, and have the language we use in job offers to be more open and inclusive, and not to be as restrictive as it is. So I told you this is a topic for another podcast that you have a few opinions.
We'll have to have another one. Well, on a sort of a more personal basis, to sort of wrap things up, a bit more light-hearted, seeing as we've got quite deep. And, you know, I mean, I think the diversity element of it is a really important part of it. And as you say, I mean, to anything that we're trying to achieve here, there's people, processes, and technology. And the bits and the bytes is just effectively, if you take it as three things, just one of those things. But one of the questions here, and I'm really curious as to what you might answer this, is which superhero would you be and why?
Oh, which superhero would I be?
Changing the tack here and getting you on the offensive. As soon as you went and asked me a question, I'm now going to give you the really tough ones at the end.
That is a tough one, you know.
Maybe what superpower you'd like, because I feel it's hard to define you as one of the already existing superheroes, to be fair, Brian.
I was thinking more along like Super Mouse or something like that, you know, somebody unexpected, you know, like
well, yeah, that's definitely unexpected.
yeah, exactly. You know, we you know, we can be small, but we can have a big impact, you know. So and humor always carries you through the end of the day as well. So
it can be very important, particularly when you're being asked difficult questions on a podcast.
Yeah, exactly, you know,
or quickly from that one then.
Or you're in the middle of a major cybersecurity incident and people are stressed out. The right
dear. Oh dear. Well, I hope that's not the case. So on to slightly lighter things. Well, we're probably quite light with the superhero question, but sports, is it something that you enjoy watching, playing?
Oh yes, absolutely.
And what sport would that be?
Oh, sport would be obviously soccer. Here in Ireland we've got hurley and we've got GAA football. They'd be big. Golf, like
what you mean, the no rules football?
No, we have rules, just not many.
Just not many.
And you don't.
Well, there's two rules. There's a ball, and then you run around with it, and then basically,
you know, we follow them sometimes, you know, but you know, and then
didn't they say like more like guidelines?
Guidelines, yeah. And then like I like most sports. So like Formula One racing, you know. So now, unfortunately, my stage in life, football, hurley, rugby, and soccer are things I can't play anymore because I'm getting a bit older, and so golf is the one that's.
Oh, golf! Fantastic. Yeah, I've just started playing golf actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm with you on that. A golf bat and one of those.
A golf bat, yeah.
A golf bat for me. You'll see me there rangering all over the place. Yeah, no, it's good fun. Well, I think it's just to keep active, and anything that involves outdoor space right now is a good thing, isn't it?
It is, and anything to get you away from the computer and the phone these days is good.
Very good, very good indeed. So just to round things off, we were looking at kind of inventions of the future. So are you thinking that there's anything exciting that you're looking forward to, or you think that should be coming down in Inventor Alley in the very near future that would maybe make your life easier?
Oh God. If you had a time machine, that would make life easier because you could go back and rub out all the mistakes you've made, or
you haven't made mistakes, Brian. You've just had a few learning experience, just like me. I mean, I have a couple of lessons a day. It's a bit like the doctor orders 5 lessons a day, not bits of fruit or vegetables. But
I think look, I look at my kids and I go, wow, what are your lives going to be in the next 10, 20, 30 years? And with all the changes that are coming down, climate change, globalization, and how is that going to impact their lives? And hopefully, hopefully technology and inventions will help us deal with many of those challenges. Because if I look back to when I was their age, like I showed my 13-year-old son a video on YouTube the other night of how I used to connect to the internet back in the 1990s using a modem, and he was laughing. No concept. He didn't even know what a telephone was, or a dial tone, because we're so used to mobile phones. So and then and the car analogy actually came from a conversation I had with my father a while ago about he was talking about when he was a kid, and cars back then didn't have safety belts, and he joked they didn't even have heaters. That one person in where he grew up as a kid in the 1940s cut a hole in the floor of the car and into the exhaust pipe, so in the wintertime the fumes from the exhaust pipe will come into the car to heat everybody. Now when you look back you go, oh my God,
that's not really very safe.
Yeah, but back then it was, like
just don't fall asleep in it and keep a window cracked open, right?
That's what they did. They kept it, but they were also they kept themselves warm, but they got carbon monoxide point. But how we progress as humans and how technology, I'm excited about all of that and how all that can happen. And if you look at Star Trek and see some stuff from Star Trek in the 1960s, 70s, we're using them now, like sliding doors and mobile talking devices. We didn't have those back in the 70s. We do now. Where is all that going? There's a lot of excitement happening. Obviously, we need to make sure it's secure as well. So
that's your job, and the startups that are coming in.
Exactly. Well, hopefully startups will take over those roles, because there's only so much mileage left on the clock here,
I'm not ruling you out just yet, Brian. None of this, you can't play sports anymore and now are just destined. You have to be pretty fit to play golf, to be fair. I find that quite strenuous. But and it's a good long walk too.
True.
So cool. All right. Well, it's fabulous to have you on board again. I mean, this is our 10th outing, so we can consider ourselves officially veterans of the awards. And yeah, we're looking forward to finding out more. There is a little something that I can probably, by the time that this is aired, will be public knowledge, but we are going to have an awards evening.
Cool.
Well, unsurprisingly, there will be a bit of Zooming involved. Clearly we can't actually meet up, but it is a lovely thing, because obviously being global, we've always struggled to work out, could we do something like that? And now it's such part of the new normal that people do log in to see things. We thought, why not? Exactly. Let's join the masses and have a virtual evening together. So more on that soon. But brilliant. Thanks so much for joining us, Brian. I'm a little bit worried that you're now swanning around doing a podcast when in reality the rest of the team are running around sorting out this cyber attack. So I'm hoping that was a joke.
Oh no, sorry, I didn't mean that. There's no cyber
attack. It isn't really happening right now, because I thought, well, you're very calm if that's the case. Everybody here has got it all handled, so we're fine.
When you have a good team, you have a good team.
Exactly right. So thanks very much for joining us today, everybody. I've been here with Brian Honan from BH Consulting, who's our long-standing judge in cybersecurity. So he's looking forward to receiving and looking through your submissions this year. We are the Tech Trailblazers, and this is the Judges on Fire podcast. And if you want to find out more about us, you can visit us online at www.techtrailblazers.com. Follow us on Twitter at lots of ats, at Tech Trailblaze, or find us on LinkedIn. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Rose.